Hey, it's Webs here, and it's time to call in the cavalry with Heal Paladin. Has Heal Paladin finally hit a critical mass where it actually is a deck? I'll find out here. As we try to use some of the new big Paladin support, along with the Heal Paladin support that we have seen in the most recent sets, while also using the very powerful Lightforged Carryall as a way to negate half of the damage that we would normally take. And finally finishing off our opponent with some big minions or Cthun if we manage to actually get all 4 pieces used. For the Mulligan guide of this deck, both Blessed Goods and First Day of School are great to keep in your open hand for a turn 1 play. Vitality Surge is also great depending on what type of matchup you're having. You're usually not going to use this on turn 2 because you want to heal as much as you humanly can off of this card. The combo of City Tax and Equality can actually help you a lot in an aggro based matchup just because you can wipe out your entire opponent's board. Just be a little bit careful about using Equality out of order with some of your big minions on board. That can actually lose you the game. And finally, the last 2 cards that I would keep in my open hand are both Barricade and Cavalry Horn. So for Barricade, it serves as a way for you to actually have some type of low cost minion without actually running any low cost minions in the deck itself. And Cavalry Horn allows you to turn a 10 cost minion into a turn 6 play if you have it in your opening hand, which is actually pretty good for this type of deck. And there are a lot of ways in this deck to actually cheat out big minions, which is why we're actually running 0 low cost minions just so we can get the best Vitality Surge, which actually saves you in a lot of games, or a bigger commencement push whenever you drag a minion out of your deck. With that being said, let's go find some games. Alright, time for a game against Hunter. So this is going to be a kind of awkward matchup for this deck, just because we're going to need to have some survivability tools early on, while also focusing on being able to survive long enough to get down the big minions. The City Tax isn't a bad start though. Having Carryall in our starting hand is actually pretty bad. Just gonna trade away the City Tax, getting the First Day of School. That is a really good top deck though. Though the Sun Raptor is not a 1-star card that I wanted to see, just because it can screw up our commencement. Sure, it's a low % chance, but it still could. Now we have to be careful because of the Null, not the Null, the Drog. Well, we can Hero Power and use the Raptor. Though I guess if my opponent kills the Raptor before it gets its frenzy off, then we're perfectly fine, because they don't technically know what type of deck we're running. Nothing that we've played so far would give it away, and they are actually going to do that, which is good news for us. We need a Consecration as a top deck or another AoE here. City Tax is good for next turn, but it isn't for this turn, because we can City Tax next turn and just use Vitality Surge to heal for whatever damage that we take. Okay, so it shouldn't be too awful of a turn. And some of these top decks are not good though. I'm going to just put the Cavalry Horn down, get the Trog down, since we weren't going to kill it with a City Tax anyways. But we could have done that turn. It just depended on what we wanted to do. We're not too worried about getting too low. It is still hard for Hunter to do 20 damage in 1 turn, even though they are the stereotypical face class. Well, now that's interesting. So we could do a few things here. Going to use that to get the Brass Wing down, which is great, and then draw into a second Brass Wing, and then we do have the choice between playing the City Tax or just playing the weapon that we generated here. We're going to heal for a little bit though. The whole deck is centered around maximizing the amount of heals that you can actually get, because if you can out heal the damage, then you just win the game eventually. I'm going to use Commencement, and that is one of the perfect commencements that we could have actually gotten. Though the Tundra Rhino is going to get annoying because we don't have an easy way to deal with it unless we get a quality. Well, that can get it low, but we're going to have to use Carryall heal, probably. We're going to attack, see what we get. I mistakenly put this down because I forgot it's immune when it attacks. Though it does prevent them from doing like 2 extra damage to my face if they decide to attack into it or not. But they just go face. Aim shot's going to do 2 damage. Their hero power will also do 2 damage. We're getting dangerously low here. We're probably going to put down the Templar next turn, but there are other plays that we could do that are a little bit more risky. Okay, so 2 more damage. And that is not something we wanted to see. Oh, equality, though, is pretty nice here. We just need to discover something that does one. Oh, Righteous Defense actually helps us out greatly. We're just going to set that to 1. Use City Tax to pop the Divine Shield. Attack the Rhino. Put down the Scout. Then from this position, we're actually still kind of worried about their hero power and the amount of damage they can put out per turn. But if we can heal for a little bit more, we should be fine. Brasswing has to be our next turn play. We are getting so close to dead. And them playing the Neophyte actually saves our life here. Because we can actually kill their board by playing the Brasswing and heal for 4, and then use our hero power. And they're still in top deck mode, and we have a 18-18 in our hand. Though I don't think that's going to be the monster we're going to want to put down. We're probably going to want to put down the Taunt instead, just because if they get something out top of their deck that could actually make them win, we don't want to have to deal with some type of charge minion. And we're also going to kill the Scout, just for the fact that if we don't kill the Scout, it could get a Rhino and then kill us that way. And we're 2 off of lethal, but I don't think it should matter here. And we just win. Alright, time for a game against Druid. This isn't the worst opening hand that I've ever seen with this deck, though we should actually not have a few of these cards online in this matchup. Okay, so there's our Cthulhu. And they have Cthulhu. Okay, so we're just going to pass the turns back and forth. I should have actually shuffled City Tax into the deck. Though, if they're playing some type of ramp druid with Cthulhu attached to it, keeping the City Tax in our hand isn't terrible just because we can kill a big board. We can just hero power. Okay, so we're just gonna use our Divine Goods. Cavalry Horn is good in theory, but we're gonna choose the Reckoning just because that will probably come up in this matchup. Then shuffle in City Tax and get the second City Tax. That really shouldn't shock me anymore, but it always does when it always happens. Okay, so they seem to be some type of ramp druid. That's a deck that I really want to visit, though given the fact that I've been using a lot of Cthulhu decks, I don't know if I should do another Cthulhu deck this close. Cthulhu is becoming the Silas of this set for me. There's just so many decks that can actually abuse Cthulhu right now. Do I think half of them are good? Probably not, but still you can abuse it in so many decks. Okay, Body of Cthulhu. Not really too worried about that. Just gonna use the Barricade. Another Overgrowth. This is going to be a long game, but it should have some type of payoff between the two Cthulhu decks. This is the highest likely chance of us actually being able to pull off a Cthulhu. Now, that is a card that I did not want to see, but luckily we have ways to deal with it. Though I don't want to waste a equality on that, to be honest. Let's see what we get off of this. Oh, a Blessing of Kings. Actually the perfect card for this situation. Heart of Cthulhu. Okay, so Cariel actually does nothing in this matchup. Just because Cthulhu does 1 damage and half of 1 damage is half of a damage, but is rounded up, so it's going to be 1 damage no matter what. There was actually a game before this where that came up, and I didn't really have a way to out it. I guess put down a bunch more minions and hope it would hit the minions over me, but Cenarian Ward. We do have a turn 8 play in the form of the Templar. You know, I've been calling it Templar, but it is actually a Templar. Okay. Well, that's a card that I never expected to see. I haven't seen Yogg in any type of deck in quite a while. Probably because this Yogg doesn't actually guarantee cast one spell for every spell that you cast. And a lot of the time it's just going to be really boring. I'm going to see what we get off of this. Grabbing the Reckoning. Going to buff up our local R. And then just go face. Could have traded in the city tax again, but oh well. I want to keep it in my hand just in case of needing it with equality. There goes their Yogg. Well, that's interesting. Cards that haven't seen play for quite a while, for 400, I guess. This was a huge misplay here. I should have honestly just killed it instantly. Because I could have killed it with equality and city tax. Now they're just going to be able to go off, which actually might hurt our chance of winning here. It's interesting to see how much draw power that deck has, though. Okay, so they're almost done with Cthulhu, and we're nowhere near completing ours. I wonder if you got enough Moonlight Guidance, you could actually complete 2 Cthuns instead of 1 in that deck. That would be kind of funny. You know, that card actually doesn't look bad in this matchup now I'm looking at it. Now, I don't think it's the most consistent one, but it doesn't look too bad. I wonder if that replaced the Celestial Alignment engine. Going to use equality and city tax, buffing up our minion and our hand even more, then using Vitality Surge just in case. They don't have 1 Cthulhu piece, so we should be fine still. I was kind of hoping that they would burn Cthulhu there. Wildheart Guff, okay. They're really just using that for more draw engine, I think. Alright, so they're trying to get us as low as possible so that Cthulhu actually kills us. But if we keep putting down big minions, we should still be fine. Maw of Cthulhu. Good news for us, we prevented them from having enough mana this turn, but they're going to draw into it no matter what. Okay, so they're going to get some more things here. Moonlight Guidance. Oh, that could actually be pretty bad. That's what, 3 Cthuns? If we survive the first Cthulhu, we're alright, I guess, but 3 turns is going to be a little bit more difficult. You know, in this situation, I wouldn't have actually chose to attack that. Well, we can put local R down. He is a 2020 body, so he should hit some of the Cthulhu. As long as he survives, we live. Who's better, a 2020 elemental or a old god? I mean, there wasn't much else they could have done besides use Cthulhu there. Unless they have another way to buff it up. But it looks like we were just going to win. This was actually a lot closer of a game than I actually remembered. But 40 damage is nothing to be laughed about. Alright, time for a game against Warrior. So this isn't the worst starting hand in the world, but it isn't really the best. I'm going to get rid of the snack run and the city tax. Though we could have used the city tax as a way to have a turn 1 play. Now these two, Protect the Innocent can be useful if we can survive long enough to actually use it. Frostwing, If we draw into a Cavalry Horn, then we'll have use for it there. Okay, so their quest line, that shouldn't really shock anyone. Blessed Goods is a great top deck just so we have a turn 1 play. Grabbing the Secret just because that should help us survive a little bit. We also do technically have a turn 6 play if we decide to actually use Vitality Surge in combination with Protect the Innocent. Snack Run isn't a terrible top deck. Just going to use the hero power though. Oh, never mind. Just going to use Snack Run, get a first day of school. which is extremely useful in this case. Because we can survive quite a long time as long as we have some way to down on the board. Oh, 2 rush minions. That's actually pretty good. We could get rid of the 3/3. Could have also probably saved it for the next turn, use the coin, and then coin out the barricade. What we really need is to top deck a cavalry horn, and then we should be actually in a really good position. Okay, Carriel isn't a bad top deck, just going to put down the barricade and then pass the turn. Okay, so they're going to try to kill the barricade with their minions and their hero, I'm assuming. That was not a good cannon ball for us. We do have card advantage over them though, which is actually pretty good. And a top deck of barricade actually is great here. And then we can just use the secret. So as long as they don't attack with the 2/1, we actually get a really good hit for the secret. Okay, South Sea's captain. Sucks that that makes it a 2/2 instead of a 1/1, but oh well. Okay, so we can actually heal ourselves for a bunch and then use the coin, which is probably what I'm going to do here. Now we're almost back to full HP. The issue is most of our hand are high cost minions, which kind of sucks, but we do have only 2 turns till we can actually play them. Well, that's a shock. So are they questline Menagerie Warrior? Well, we do have the Cthun piece. And then a snack run, which will probably heal us for a little bit. I'm gonna grab the Righteous Defense, because they don't really have any spells in their deck. And that would be our other option, and it heals us to full. Okay, so Captain Rakara. We do have rush minions in our hand, so we'll probably play that next turn. We could have also siphoned off the HP and attack off of it. Of course they get a stupid Bulwark of Azeroth. I swear, whenever I'm facing a questline warrior, they either get that or Gorehowl, and that gives them perfect lethal. I'm gonna play the second Templar, and then see what we get off of that. Actually, not a bad haul from that first day of school. We do want to get to the point where we can use Carriel just so we take half damage. There's the Cavalry Horn. We can actually play the Cavalry Horn and then play our 1/1s here, just in case. We want to kill one of the 2/3s and then kill the other one with their weapon. Sure, this makes it where Templar does die to a cannon barrage, but we still prevent them from having a shit ton of damage on board, because we didn't put down Carriel yet. Well, that's a top deck. Okay, Commencement might be useful, but I think putting down the Carriel might be better here. Just so we make it where we take half damage. Then we could hero power too, buff up the scrapyard. And another Bulwark, which shouldn't really shock me, and they kill our Templar. Alright, so we can play the Commencement and the Righteous Defense. That is a really good Commencement. Just pass the turn and heal for a little bit. I don't think there's any coming back from this unless they get a Mr. Smite and like a Gorehowl. Though we are taking half damage, so that probably will prevent that. So we should just win here. I'm gonna get another Brass Wing off of that. Now I could have been really BM and actually just pass the turn, but I didn't want to see if they could. Alright, now that we're through some games, let's discuss my final thoughts of the deck and why I built the deck the way I did. So overall, across the 32 games that I played, it actually had a 50% win rate. And there were definitely quite a few games where I felt like I could have easily won, but I misplayed one or two cards. This isn't the most easy deck in the world to actually play. If you learn how to use your Vitality Surges to their best availability and combo it with a Protect the Innocent when you can, or with a Cavalry Horn when you can actually win quite a few games that you normally wouldn't expect you to do. And while I did include Cthulhu in this deck as a way to have some other control tools that I thought might be useful and a way to finish off my opponent once they ran out of big minions, Cthulhu himself never ever came up in any type of game. There were some games where it was close to coming up, where I had all the pieces actually used, but usually by the time that would be a possibility, you would just finish off your opponent with some type of big buffed up minion through your Light Forge Carryall. But he was really included in here just in case I did run into that situation, because there are a lot more top heavy decks actually floating around in Hearthstone right now, and I wanted a way to actually deal with some of those if it came down to it. But to be honest, he was probably the best possibility I could have had for a big threat, just because by the time that you would have him actually shuffled into your deck, you probably would already have used both of your commencements. But if you really wanted to, you could cut him for another consecration, just as another way to actually do some AoE damage to your opponent. And overall, this deck actually shocked me of how consistent it actually was. So I could easily recommend this deck. I do think it's missing maybe one or two more cards from being a complete tier 1 deck, and it is nice to finally see Paladin having some type of other deck besides just Libram Paladin or Hand Buff Paladin or Secret Paladin. It's been quite a while since we've had a new type of Paladin deck in standard format, and I'm actually really looking forward to the future of this deck actually being played. With that being said, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, bye bye.